Hi, I'm Jordan Lashley from Burning Wheel Yoga School, and this is 7 things to look for in a yoga teacher training. If you're thinking about doing a yoga teacher training this year, you have a lot of choices. Some take a year, some take a few months, some take a couple weeks. Some are completely in person, some are online, some are hybrid, some are almost entirely pre-recorded. All of them will give you the same version of this promise. Complete this program, get a 200-hour certificate, and you'll be a yoga teacher. But here's the thing. Getting your certificate and learning how to teach yoga are not the same thing. I've been teaching yoga for about 20 years, and I've trained a lot of teachers. So if you're considering a 200-hour teacher training, here are 7 things I think you should look for before you choose one. Number 1, look at how long the training takes. If you can find a 200-hour teacher training that happens in 10 days or 2 weeks, sure. Technically, you may be able to complete the hours that way, but learning doesn't work that way. Imagine trying to drink from a fire hose. Some water is get in your mouth, but most of it's going all over your face and all over your clothes and everywhere but in you. Teacher training is similar. You're going to learn anatomy, philosophy, sequencing, cueing, observation, pranayama, meditation, teaching methodology, ethics, and ideally a lot more. But importantly, you're learning to see. You're learning to see bodies. You're learning to see movement. You're learning to see students. You're learning to recognize what's happening in a room and respond appropriately. And seeing that takes time. Information can be delivered very quickly, but developing wisdom can't. A good training gives you enough time to learn something, practice it, struggle with it, come back with questions, see it again, and gradually understand it differently. For most people, I think a training that unfolds over somewhere between 6 months and a year creates a much better environment for that to happen. Make sure you're actually going to teach. Number 2, you cannot learn to teach yoga by only listening to someone talk about teaching yoga. At some point, you have to stand up in front of people and try to teach yourself. And preferably, you should start doing that early. Not after you've spent 180 hours of your training preparing for that moment. Early, right away. You're going to forget your words. You're going to mix up left and right. You're going to give an instruction and watch nobody in the room do what you asked them to do. Good. That's where teacher training starts, because now there's something to work with. You teach. You receive feedback. You try again. And slowly, you begin recognizing the relationship between what you're saying and what's actually happening in front of you. Repetition alone doesn't produce learning. Recognition during repetition, that's when you learn something. So ask the training you're considering, how much actual teaching will I do? And when do we start? If the answer is essentially, you'll practice teach near the end, I would keep looking. Number 3, find out whether they're teaching principles or scripts. A sequence can be useful. A script, that can even be useful in the beginning. But eventually you need to understand why you're doing what you're doing to teach it. A technique tells you what to do. A principle helps you understand why you're doing it. And that distinction matters because no 2 students you're going to encounter are exactly alike, and no 2 rooms are exactly alike, and no 2 classes are ever going to be exactly alike. So if all you've learned is a script, well, the moment reality stops matching the script, you're not going to know what to do. You'll be stuck. A teacher who understands principles can adapt. They can look at the student in front of them instead of trying to force that student into the pose that's in their head. That's a very different kind of education. So don't just ask, will they give me a sequence? Ask, will they teach me how to think like a teacher? Number 4, look for live human interaction. I actually think online education can be incredibly useful. People have jobs, they have children, they have responsibilities. We don't all have the ability to disappear for a month and live in an ashram to do our teacher training. That's why I like hybrid training. Some information can be learned very effectively online. Philosophy, that can happen online. Anatomy, that can be taught online. Reading assignments and lectures, that can all happen online. But there are parts of learning to teach yoga that require human beings to actually be together. You need to see bodies move. You need somebody to see you teach. You need real-time feedback on what you're doing. You need conversations where somebody can say, I don't understand what you just said, and the teacher has to find another way of explaining it. You need community. That's why I would be very cautious about a training that's 100% online, and especially one that's primarily pre-recorded. Watching 200 hours of video may give you a tremendous amount of information, but information isn't the same thing as education. Education requires participation, relationship. Number 5, look beyond the poses. If you're doing a yoga teacher training and almost everything you're learning is asana, you're learning a very small piece of yoga. Patanjali describes 8 practices that complete yoga. Asana, poses, is one. A teacher training should certainly teach you how to teach postures well. But I would also want it to teach you, are you studying philosophy? Are you learning pranayama, meditation, ethics? How about attention? The relationship between breath and movement. What yoga is actually trying to accomplish. Because eventually your students are going to bring much more into the room than hamstrings and shoulders. They're going to bring fear and frustration. They're going to bring ambition and grief. They're going to bring their egos, and they're going to bring their uncertainty. They're going to bring their lives into their practice. And if you're going to call yourself a yoga teacher, I think your education should prepare you to teach more than shapes to put your body in. Number 6, look carefully at who's teaching you. Don't just look at the school. Look at the teacher who's running the training. How long have they actually taught yoga? How long have they trained teachers? Do they still teach regular students? What have they studied? And maybe most importantly, do you want to learn how this person sees? Because teacher training isn't simply the transmission of information. You're going to spend a lot of time around the way this person thinks, observes, questions, teaches, and responds. Credentials matter, and experience matters. But I would also take their classes. Listen to them teach. Talk to them. Ask them questions. Don't be afraid to be curious. See whether their teaching makes you more curious. A good teacher shouldn't simply make you impressed with what they know. They should make you better at seeing for yourself. Number 7, ask what happens after you graduate. This one gets overlooked all the time. You finish your 200 hours. You get your certificate. Congratulations. Now what? I'm a yoga teacher? Because that's usually the moment you realize how much you still don't know. Can you come back? Can you ask a question and observe a class? Is there any mentorship? Can you ask a question 6 months later? Can you retake parts of the training that you didn't understand? Does the school continue investing in the teachers after graduation, or does the relationship end when your tuition does? I think teacher training should be the beginning of an education and not the end of one. At Burning Wheel, we tell our trainees something very simple. Pay once, come back anytime. Once you're in, you're family. Because you're going to hear something during your first training that won't make any sense, and you'll just kind of dismiss it, and then you'll go teach for a year. You'll encounter a problem, a student will ask a question, you'll come back, you'll hear the same exact lesson again, and suddenly you'll understand, it'll click, it'll land. The information didn't change, you did. Your perception did, your understanding did. So, how should you choose? Don't choose a yoga teacher training simply because it's the fastest. Don't choose it simply because it's the cheapest. And don't choose it simply because it gives you the certification that you need. Ask yourself, will this program give me time to learn? Will I actually practice teaching? Will I learn principles instead of just memorizing a script? Will I have access to real teachers and real feedback? Will I learn yoga beyond the asanas? Do I respect the people teaching me? And will there be a relationship after I graduate? A 200-hour certificate says you've completed the program. It doesn't necessarily tell anyone what you've learned. And most yoga studios are going to expect you to audition so they can hear what you've learned. Choose the education. The certificate comes with it. I'm Jordan Lashley from Burning Wheel Yoga School in Natick, Massachusetts. If you're considering doing a teacher training, whether it's with us or somewhere else, I hope this gives you a better idea of what to look for. And if you have a question about teacher training that I didn't answer here, put it in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Or maybe there's a good chance I'll stick it in the next video. Like, share, subscribe. See you soon.